Seems the way every year we do classes around Chanukah. I obviously never remember what we've spoken about, what we haven't spoken about. So I can only hope that you don't remember either, and then it doesn't really matter. So one of the most beautiful vorts of this time of the year is that it's a Chassidish month also. As we know, we're just coming from Yud Kislev, and many sichas from the Rabbi about the connection between Kislev and Chassidus. Everybody who's acquainted with Chabad, I think everybody's acquainted in the world with Chabad. So everybody knows the Chanukah is like a big thing in Chabad. I mean, it's expanding the light, but also the previous. If you follow all the Rebbe's Maimorim in Chassidus, so Chanukah is a very, very important point of Haskalah in the understanding of Chassidus. It's also the final holiday, as we know, the culmination of the holiday. It's also the final mitzvah of the 620 mitzvahs we have. And there are 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. And our sages added 7 mitzvahs, midirabanan. So altogether, the Gematria is Keter mitzvot. There are a crown of mitzvahs. Keter begimatria ratzon, which is the word of Chanukah, as we'll explain. And of all these mitzvahs, so the final one, historically, the last mitzvah that was constituted was the lighting of the Chanukah candle. That's the last of the additional 7 mitzvahs that our sages decreed. Now, the month of Kislev, we'll get to different angles, but the month of Kislev in Sefer Yetzirah is every month, as we know, has a sense to it, a chush. So the chush, the sense of the month of Kislev is chush hachalima, the sense of dreaming, sleeping. This is a good month to learn how to sleep. If you sleep well, sleep efficiently, like the Rebbe was a very efficient sleeper. If you're very efficient when you're sleeping, then you only need to sleep a very little bit. You get a lot of sleep done in a very short time. That's a talent that everybody needs to learn as they go along in life, to sleep well. If you sleep well, again, then you save a lot of time. You don't need to sleep too much. If you don't sleep well, you sleep a lot. If you have high quality sleep, you can sleep a very little bit. Like we say on Shabbos, there's in one of the Psalms, the important Psalms of Shabbos, we say Sheina Meshubachat. On Shabbos, there's a high quality sleep. So a lot of people take that. You should sleep a lot on Shabbos. But the more Hasidic interpretation, on Shabbos, you can sleep very well, and therefore you don't need to sleep too much.
Where does it say Shana Mishubachat about Shabbos?
It's in the Mizmor of Mayedidus, one of the famous Mizmorim. I think it was written by the Ibn Ezra. One of the famous Psalms of Chabad. A lot of people don't know the Psalms that well, but there are the Zmirot Shabbat, and one of the most important Zmiros is Mayedidus. And there you say Vashena Mishubachat, Kedat Nefesh Meshiva. The sleeping is meshubach. It's a very fine sleep on Shabbos. So this month, Kislev, is the sense of sleep, or the word actually sense of dreaming, chalima, how to dream. Maybe one of the most beautiful phenomena is that virtually all the dreams of the Torah are all concentrated into the parshas that we usually read in the month of Kislev. So all the dreams in the Torah revolve around these parshas. We're reading Sefer Bereshis, which is the most beautiful Sefer, and the beginning of every year. And when you reach the area of Kislev, then you start hearing about dreams. Many dreams. They all pack into approximately 4 parshas. Usually the dreams, I think all the dreams in the Torah, they also appear in pairs, usually. Now we're going to read about in Parashat Vayeshev, so that's maybe the most famous dreams of Yosef HaTzadik, that he dreams about he dreams. There are many dreams about Yosef HaTzadik. His own dreams are the dreams of the heavens and the stars and the moons, and the dream of the wheat, of the bundles of wheat. In the next parsha, you have Paro's dreams, last parsha we also had dreams. There's dreams. There's Yaakov's dream about the ladder, and then there's Lavan's dream where Hashem comes to him and warns him. So very, very special dreams in the Torah. You see in the Torah, there's a special sikha from the Rabbi about this, that every dream is very simple. If you had a dream, that's exactly what's going to be. Since then, a lot of years have gone by, and we have all kinds of delusions in our minds. Our thoughts aren't set straight. So Chazal say, Chalomot shav yedaberu. Today we don't know. We've lost the knack of dreaming. In the Torah, people knew how to sleep and they knew how to dream. So any dream that anybody dreams in the Torah is immediately taken as a prophecy, and not just any prophecy. It's immediately taken as the most simple prophecy possible. Whatever the dream is, what you dreamt, that's what's going to happen. Again, later on in Chazal, even in the Nach, so dreams become something that's alluding to the prophecy. And later on, in the time of the Talmud already, our sages say that the dreams are delusional. So there's like a deterioration in how proficient you are in dreaming. That again, first in the Torah, originally a dream is mamish one-to-one, a reflection of what's going to be. So if you dream about 12, your 12 brothers are bundles of wheat and they're bowing down to you with your father and your mother, then that's what's going to happen. Your brothers are going to come, and in the context of wheat, they're going to come to get food, and they're going to have to bow down to you in order to get their food. Everything is mamish kipshuto. Your dreams were kipshuto. All the dreams in the Torah were like that. It says that this was the reason that Paro found it so difficult to find a solution for his dream, because all the solutions he was given weren't simple enough. That's how it's explained. It's Chazal say that he dreamt about, in the Torah says he dreamt about cows and also strands of wheat, and all the interpretations he was given, like Rashi brings, Chazal say, were interpretations that suggested his dreams were alluding to things, but not that they were explicit. And obviously the explicit meaning of his dreams, we can take it even a parsha forward a bit and stray from the point, but there's a very, very beautiful sikha of the Rebbe about Parashat Miketz, about the dreams of Paro. And this is exactly the question he asks. The interpretation that Yosef gives Paro about his dreams, everybody's so impressed, and you're such a godly person, how could you give such a wonderful interpretation? But seemingly he gave a very simple interpretation. He just said that the skinny cows are years of famine, fat cows are years of lusciousness, and if the famine eats the lusciousness, then the famine is going to be so strong that you won't remember your lusciousness. And it comes to the cows. It says they were coming out of the Nile, which is the source of sustenance in Egypt. Again, the interpretation he suggested for the dreams was seemingly the most simple interpretation possible. It says that Paro's wizards had suggested interpretations: you'll conquer 7 lands, you'll lose 7 lands, and he wasn't happy. There's a full sikha from the Rebbe. The point the Rebbe says there is exactly what we're saying right now, that the reason Paro wasn't happy with any of the solutions until Yosef came around is because all the other solutions that were suggested to him were all interpretations. The dream was alluding to something, but in the Torah, again, in that day and age, this is a very important point, the dreams were clear truths. People knew how to sleep, they knew how to dream. So if I dreamt something, then it was clear to me that this is what it's going to be. So when the wizard suggested to Paro all sorts of alluding hints, he wasn't satisfied. Only when Yosef gave a simple explanation, the Rabbi also explains there in the Sikha why the wizards didn't give the simple explanation. He says that again, this word that the Rebbe says is directly connected, and I didn't mean to mention it, but now that I think about it, it's very, very directly connected to the point we wanted to explain about Kislev and dreams. That what the Itztagnanim, the wizards, weren't capable of solving in Paro's dream is that it says explicitly that the fat cows and the skinny cows, or the fat wheat and the skinny wheat, they all stood on the Nile simultaneously. And the Rebbe explains that this is why the wizards weren't capable of explaining it as two different time spans because it happened simultaneously. It wasn't first this and then that. That's why they didn't tend to Yosef's interpretation. This is why this is Yosef's brilliance, that within his interpretation, he embedded the solution, which was to starve Egypt in the luscious years, so that then you can eat the sustenance of your luscious years in the famine years. And what happens if you take what is the beauty of Yosef's solution, that the solution of the dream integrated his suggestion. That what Paro dreamt, he dreamt what's going to happen, and he also dreamt Yosef's solution. That because what Yosef's telling him is that there's going to be 7 years of famine, 7 years of sustenance, and then 7 years of famine. But because you're going to, now that you know this, you're going to starve your people for the first 7 years, and you're going to eat the sustenance of those 7 years for the second 7 years, then it's as if the famine starts already now, and the lusciousness carries on into the famine. So it's actually happening simultaneously, that you have both famine and sustenance simultaneously. And that's why the cows are standing together on the Nile. And that ability to integrate the solution into the solution of the dream into the advice of behavior, like to take Paro's free will, you could call it, his ability to choose, whereas again, like Yosef exposes him to that even his own ability, his own free will, isn't really a free will because it's integrated into the prophecy that he gets. So that's how the Rebbe explains that this was the brilliance, the impressive brilliance of Yosef's solution, which was seemingly very simple, but his ability again to integrate the time span and explain not just the time span, but by integrating the time span, he was able to explain how the dream anticipated Paro's own free will, his own choices. That because Paro is going to now starve his people in order to maintain and store all the sustenance for the famine years, therefore the famine is seemingly starting already simultaneously with the sustenance. That was his brilliance, Yosef's brilliance. What's the point we wanted to make about this? Two things. First of all, that you see that in the earlier years, again, all the dreams of the Torah are like this. Every dream you dream, we're reading about it now, you can see it in the Parshas. Every dream someone dreams is exactly what's going to happen. And we'll get back to that word that Yosef solves for Paro in a second. But the more we go on in history, the less you can count on your dream. You've lost the ability to dream well. And therefore, again, because our general concentration is a mist, pizur hanefesh. A person's concentration soul is spread thinly. And that's a simple pshat in Chazal, that chalomot shav yedaberu, that your dreams are nonsense because it's just your subconscious thoughts during the day. And because during the day you're not concentrating, you're not focused, then your dreams are a muddle of all of your thoughts. But if you were concentrated, it says even today in the Yom Yom, that if a person learns Torah, beyegiah, if you're concentrated on the learning of the Torah, this is mamish, a natural phenomenon. That if a person learns Torah, beyegiah, yegiah means with an effort, with a serious effort, to make a serious effort to learn Torah all day long, then at night you dream chidushei Torah. Torah is revealed to you during your sleep at night. And this is mamash experientially a natural phenomenon. As we're explaining here, that the more a person's psyche or more a person's awareness is healthy and concentrated and settled, the more his dreams are a natural reflection of the truth. But the more we become imbibottled and our entire life is full of associative thought, and we're very easily distracted. We're all severely ADHD today. Even those of us who are not officially ADHD relatively ADHD, and therefore our dreams are chalomot shav yedaberu, like Chazal say that today dreams are a heap of nothingness. So we can't count on them. So we've lost our ability to dream. And Kislev is the month, is the time to recuperate, to rehabilitate your dreaming skills. So every Jew has a skill of dreaming. What is the skill? What's the point? The nakuda of dreaming. So the emes, as we explained, the nakuda of dreaming is this is why Chassidus is so integrated also with this month, where the Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah of Chassidus, means that Kislev, like the Rebbe, parallels this to Sivan, the third month of the summer, where the summer is a lit up time, Torah all. And the time you get the Torah, the time the Jewish people received the Torah was in the summer, in Chodesh Sivan, the third month of the summer. But Torah Chassidut, the previous depth of the Torah, the secrets of the Torah, we received in the third month of the winter, the depth of the winter, Kislev. Because Be'emet, the Chassidus, the depth of the Torah, it's not the light of the Torah, it's the essence of the Torah, the oil of the Torah. It's not the etzem. The etzem isn't the light. These are two important terms in Chassidus, that there's the essence of the thing and there's the light. The light is the revelation. There's how I appear to you, how I reveal myself to you, but there's my essence, who I am. Same thing in the Torah. There's the essence of the Torah, and there's the light of the Torah. So the light of the Torah, or the revealed Torah, but the Torah reveals itself to us, that was given in Nisan, in the days of light, in the summer. But the essence of the Torah, the oil of the Torah, also on Hanukkah. The main point of Hanukkah is not the light, it's the oil. And the light, we're not even allowed to enjoy the light. It's not like a Shabbos candle that you can enjoy. You don't bask in the light of the candles. The light is just the consumption. It's like the inevitable revelation resulting from the consumption of the essence. And the oil is the main point of tamtzit. It comes out if you take something, you squeeze it. And the point of essence that comes out of anything, that's the oil of that thing. And the oil of the Torah is the Chassidus, the Pnimis Torah. That's what reveals itself in Hanukkah, and also in Kislev in general. What's the difference between light and essence in Chassidus? So, there's a lot of Chassidus explaining the difference between these two things. The main point is an etzem. This is also connected to what we spoke about last week, if you recall. Last week around Yotet Kislev, like we said, the Chassidus, Hanukkah, Kislev, dreaming, it's all one mess. And like we explained last week, when we spoke about the Alter Rebbe, spoke about the Beinoni, and the point we wanted to make last week is how the Beinoni is a true intermediate. He's a true center. And what we explained, if you recall last week, is that the true center isn't just a compromising of the edges. It's the opposite. It's a well-defined, like the lip of the scale, which is capable of integrating all of the edges and even containing them and even stretching them and enhancing them. It's called Nesiyat HaFachim. That's the term. The true Beinoni.
Excuse me, Miriam. Will you please mute yourself? It's becoming it's hard to hear.
I hope it's not coming from me.
No, it's not.
Okay. So, because I have background noises here that are not in my control. I can try, but probably not in my control.
Oh, it is yours. Okay, sorry.
Again, so what's the explanation about the etzem, the essence, that etzem noseh hafachim? Just like a person, if we take that example we use for our personality, that my revelation is always going to be somewhat one-dimensional. That I reveal something of myself. So my light, what I reveal, it could be very beautiful, it could be very intense, very, very deep of who I am, but it's still any revelation, because it's specified, it's something specific, then it's one-dimensional. So either I reveal my love, I reveal my fear, I reveal something of who I am, my understanding even, my faith. I could reveal very, very deep things, but I'm still revealing something specific. Once you revealed it, it's a definition of self. Whereas your essence of yourself, obviously includes all of the different revelations. The etzem capacitates and includes a paradox. That's the main nekuda of the difference between light and essence. Same thing we explained last week about the Beit of the Tanya, that all of the moichin, all of the thought, the intelligence of the Tanya is the ability to balance you, not around a compromised center, but to give you a true intermediate point which contains all of the peaks and lows of your personality and even enhances them, your ability to capacitate yourself, all of yourself. Even though, again, you include seemingly, not only seemingly, truly contradicting edges. Sometimes you're a Rasha, sometimes you're a tzaddik, sometimes you're in a high, sometimes you're in a low. And the Beit is the ability, the psychological ability, or in any context we discuss, to capacitate, and that's true balance, to balance the whole system. But as we explained last week, when we mean balance, we don't mean to iron it out to something compromised enough that I can contain. No, we mean to balance the edges and even expand them. And true balance, not a compromised balance, demands this ability to laset paradox, to carry, the word is laset, which means to tolerate, to carry a paradox. And this is the trait of the etzem. There's a very famous kuntras from the Rabbi, kuntras Inyana shel Torah Chasidut, where the Rabbi wrote a saying, one of the Rabbi's first essays, that he wrote a mimer to explain what is the point of Chassidus. If you study the mimer, he explains Kabbalah, he explains Nigle, he explains everything. The only thing he doesn't really explain is Chassidus. Why? Because that's what he explains. He explains that Chassidus is the essence of them all. It's the oil. If you squeeze the whole Torah out, that's what you'll get. And you can't explain it, because what it is the ability to contain the multitude of aspects of the Torah. And therefore to bring them to life and enhance them, stretch them. This trait is what's explained always in Chassidus. This is what it means to dream. The dreaming, when a person is dreaming, he's capable. You can just experientially feel this, that in dreams you can contain paradoxical situations. This is what Chazal say, that in a dream you can dream pila bekufa demachta. That's the example. Pila bekufa demachta, which means that in a dream you can pass an elephant through the hole of a needle. What's the word for the hole of a needle? The eye of a needle? No, there's a word for that, I don't remember. So in Aramaic it's kufa demachta. Pila bekufa demachta. That's the phrase. Everybody should memorize this phrase, because this is the trait that we've lost, and that Chassidus comes to rehabilitate your ability to dream an elephant in the hole of a needle. To be able to, what's the elephant in the hole of the needle? It's the ability to contain infinity within finitude, to tolerate the paradox of infinity dwelling within finitude, like putting something very big, an elephant, into a very, very small, finite hole. That's pila bekufa demachta. And Chazal say that when you're dreaming, then that can happen. Two examples. You can float with your boat in the air. That's an example. You're flying in a boat. So I don't know what that means. We need to think about that as well. And you can pass an elephant through the hole of a needle. So if you haven't dreamt about these two things yet, so you should practice dreaming about putting an elephant through the hole of a needle and flying in your boat in the air. So what is this alluding to? That's what a dream knows how to do. The true sense of dreaming. Again, if we connect this to how we contemplated last week, very, very similar. Again, this is the same word, chanukah, chassidus. So we discussed last week that about the Beinoni, that it's an ability to contain all of my edges, and that if I don't have this ability, then I slowly but surely my aspirations deteriorate. That's how we described it. When I was young, I had a high, and also I had the lows. But the breaking, the unpleasant seesaw between high and low caused a compromising. And when I grow old, I try to maintain more compromised barriers, not to aspire too high, not to fall too low. And that's entropy. That's psychological entropy. And in order to avoid that and to even heal what we've already compromised, then you need the Beit. That's what we explained last week. So this is exactly the sense of dreaming. Chassidus wants to rehabilitate your aspirations, your dreams. When you were young, when you were a baby, then you had crazy dreams. Almost physically, you had crazy dreams. Anybody can remember this? I remember this. When you're very young, you dream wondrous things. Also when you're sleeping and also when you're awake, you have very large aspirations. You're going to be an astronaut or a cowboy. I don't know. You could be anything. Now, also these aspirations, these very strong motivations, very often they shatter onto the wall of reality, which is what in turn causes a process of psychological deterioration where you compromise your dreams. But we want these dreams. And when you were young, as we explained last week, so it was a chaotic nature. It wasn't so stable. You didn't have the vessels to capacitate these dreams, which is also the reason they didn't come true. But you had the mental ability to dream. You had the ma'of, that's the word in Hebrew, the volume, the psychological volume to dream very large. And this is what the balance of the Beinoni, what the light of Chanukah, so that's the whole story of Chanukah. The whole story of Chanukah is that in a very deteriorated situation, in the end of the time of the temple, where the miracles aren't happening anymore, there's a political deterioration. In all of the original biblical age, which was full of lights and aspirations, everything fell apart, and time did its thing, and we kind of got integrated into a gray, compromised, not aspiring Judaism. And so much so that it brought about hitbolelut. And this is what brings assimilation. Assimilation is also a very important word. Assimilation is a result of a non-aspiring Judaism. When Judaism doesn't aspire enough, or Judaism becomes something compromising, then you get assimilation. You can explain it very simply that people aren't attracted to something that's gray and boring. People are attracted to something more illuminating, more revolutionary, but also simply because it's not Jewish. And the less Jewish you are, then the less clear it is the difference and the uniqueness of godliness in the world. It's the same thing that happened in the time of Hanukkah, that Judaism became so unaspiring over many, many, many years, millennia, that there was a delusion of Goyishkeit being richer. And the solution was a band of Jews that re-aspired, recuperated their ability to dream. And they miraculously, their political aspirations were completely delusional in all practical levels. And this is the miracle of Hanukkah. And the ability to do that, again, this is the point to catch from all of it. Okay, in our day and age, so for me, the easiest associate of the thought is always the Rebbe's very famous quotation from the Rebbe, that he said that even in his very young age, when he was 3 years old, that's how the Rebbe himself phrased it, before Omdi al Dati, he remembers before he was even aware of himself, before being aware of himself, a very young baby, how he dreamed, the image in his mind of Odcha Hashem ki anaftabi. Odcha Hashem ki anaftabi is Yeshayahu's prophecy that when Mashiach comes, we'll see how all of the good, all the bad was good. And we'll thank Hashem for all of the hardships. That's a perfect image of a paradox. How infinity, all the light is contained within the darkness. Now the Rabbi Bemet, he said this when he was in Russia of that time, where the Rebbe was born, in the midst of communist Russia and the Second World War and Nazism. I mean, the darkest times of history, and he had ridiculous aspirations. Now, anybody who knew the Rebbe throughout the years, this is simply the most typical image of the Rebbe is that he's a ridiculous aspirer. He's crazy. He's Meshuggah. He even said about himself that he's Meshuggah. Like Chazal say about Mashiach. Mashiach he's not completely sane. Like we explained last week about the Beinoni. That in the world, if your aspirations are too high and your frustrations are also going to be very low, then you're manic-depressive. You need pills to iron you out. You don't go too high. Don't come too low. You need to compromise your edges. The Rebbe was a perfect example for an aspirer, a crazy aspirer. And his aspirations, Bemet, started in his youth, not reasonable aspirations. In the deepest, darkest times, to aspire the most final. And he said, the phrase the Rebbe said that Siyalti b'nei ruchi. He didn't just say that he aspired. He said that I had a clear image of my mind, how it's going to look. Okay, I knew I had the image in my mind, what it means, Odcha Hashem ki anaftabi, like the most final prophecies of Mashiach. And I was sitting in communist Russia. I had it. I knew what it was going to look like. And then he just devoted the rest of his life to actualizing it. Slowly but surely. He was also a very organized person. So this is the point in the sense of all of Chassidus. Like we just came out of Yutat Kislev, that the Baal Shem Tov says that he came to, his name is Israel because he came to awaken a fainted body. The breaking of the vessels we discussed last week, where a person's personality compromises, we call that dying, like Shvirat HaKelim B'Olam HaTov. That's exactly what the Baal Shem Tov said, that the Jewish people were almost dead. They were fainted. And all that Chassidus came around to do, why does he say that the whispering someone's name in his ear wakes him up? Because the name associates with your essence. That's exactly what the Baal Shem Tov says. And when you call out in someone's name, then you're not calling out to his revelations or to his to different levels of his personality. You're calling out to his very essence. It's like squeezing out that point of oil out of his personality. This is exactly what Chassidus is looking to do. That's what the Baal Shem Tov said, that my name is Israel, because I came to the world to wake up the dry, sleeping Jew. So this is the Vort of Kislev and the Vort of Chassidus in Kislev. That all of the study is looking to create, or to first to recuperate, again to heal. That's why it's Olam HaTikun. We're on the back. Our present state, also personal present state of mind in our lifespans, and also our national state of mind as a people is all post-traumatic. And we're, like the Arizal says, we're all reincarnations. We're reincarnated souls. We're not new souls. What does that mean? We're all post-traumatic. Every one of us is a compromised personality. And what Chassidus is coming to do is first to rehabilitate that, to recuperate from what you already compromised in this life, and also as a people, what we've compromised. I'll say something, I know maybe it will sound a little bit harsh to people, but this is completely clear to me in my heart, 100%, that the Rebbe said this. I don't even know before it even came out of my mouth. It's not just clear to me. The Rebbe said this explicitly. What's the biggest compromise of our time? So the most clear manifestation of what we're explaining is the state of Israel. The willingness to call this a redemption, to narrate all of our prophecies and all of the dreams along the years into the current reality, or the past 70 years of reality in Israel, and to call this our redemption. That is the greatest monumental compromise of the Jewish history. So the Frierdiker Rebbe already said when in 1948, 1949, maybe 1950s, the very earliest years of the state, that Hemiru means we compromise, but not exactly compromising. We traded Mashiach for a candy. That was his phrase. We traded Mashiach for a lollipop. There was after he explained himself. He himself said this. After the Holocaust, there was an etzratzon. It was a moment of capability, and instead of taking it the whole 9 yards, we compromised with the Kadosh Baruch Hu for a lollipop. And that's melee. What was 70 years ago? We're still the lollipop finished. It's just a stick now. We're still licking it. So nowadays it's even worse. So, but that again, this I'm just saying this as a national example for what every person, every individual is coping with in his soul today. This is exactly what Hasidus is coming to heal. That everybody is coping with a compromised personality. Relatively in our youth, we had much larger edges, but not only in this lifespan. In general, what a Jew's soul is infinitely more powerful, more infinite than what we capacitate. But without Chassidus, we have no. Again, this is a simple pshat of Chassidus. There was no value in what a Jew was, no value in what Torah was. There was a system, it worked. We did Torah, we did mitzvahs, we learned Torah. Like, what would the Baal Shem Tov say before Zionism? He'd say that we're all compromising Avodas Hashem for Olam Haba. Like the image of, we're compromising Olam Hazeh, we're compromising this world, Mashiach, Dirabah Tachtonim, for the spirituality, for next world. Now, Chassidus revealed the essential value of everything, because Chassidus is the essence of everything. And by doing so, it's capable of first healing and even enhancing your own personality, your edges, that you can now re-aspire, dream. That's why it's a messianic movement. To this day, I mean, Chassidus is a drive of a messianic movement. What's a messianic movement on a personal level? It's stretching your aspirations. And you should dream very, very high. And Bemet, you should also fall very low. What does it mean, fall very low? Falling very low means being able or daring to fix and to sweeten the deepest, darkest angles of your soul. So Bemet, just like Chassidus enhances and broadens your faith, it also exposes your lowliness. It expands your edges. That's what it does personally, and it also does that to the people as a whole. That's the shlichus, to take the entire Jewish people and rehabilitate all of our aspirations. And today, again, the national aspirations are very, very compromised. This is what Galus is. We've lost the ability to dream. And Kislev, the month of Kislev, is a time to dream. When you light on Hanukkah candle, this is what's explained in Chassidus, that you're reigniting your essence, like squeezing out your essence, which is your ability to contain a paradox. And then you're healing your ability to contain paradoxes. And that's why this is maybe the Rebbe's most fond mivtza. And the mivtza the Rebbe loved the most was Hanukkah. So all of Chabad, it's Gilu, even if people don't exactly understand why, but any Chabadnik knows that Hanukkah is the best. Just now we're in the yeshiva, we're planning tomorrow's starting Mitzvahim. So now they're talking about a seger at night. So just a couple of hours ago, I was notified that the Chabad Shlichim will get official authorizations to go around during the barricades. I'm very happy that people, as also the boys here, got these pieces of paper. I don't know how authentic they are, but we're going to walk around with them. They're good enough. But any Chabad shliach knows that also the Rebbe's koch, the koch the Rebbe gave. I had the zchus to be in 770. I was in 770 for many periods of the year. I don't know if I did the whole year around. I don't think I've ever been there for Pesach. I was there for Tishrei. I think all of the Chagim. And I can personally, I was never there when the Rebbe was alive. That I didn't merit. But even today, in 770, the Hanukkah is the best time to go to 770. A very, very special time. And you can feel the koch of the Rebbe on the Mitzvahim. Why? Because this is what it's all about. Igniting all these vorts of igniting the Jews' spark. What's the pshat? Pshat is Chassidus wants to re-expand your personality. life or time, the entropy of the natural course of life inevitably brings a compromisation of your edges. And Chassidus is the one capable of re-expanding you. And that's called igniting your spark. And if we do this enough, then there'll be a critical mass of Jews, then not only have you changed the pivot of every personal life, you've changed the pivot of the nation. That's what we need to go through. That's Mashiach. Mashiach is when the pivot of the nation changes. And instead of a deterioration process, which we're in the midst of throughout exile, where slowly but surely we compromise more and more of our edges, which, as I said, in any time in history where this becomes harsh, then you immediately see assimilation, because the more you compromise the edges, the nearer you reach to the gray middle, and all the differences become unclear. So that's why today, very similar to Chanukah, we're coping with a lot of hityavnut, a lot of assimilation. It's all a result of compromised edges. And the solution for this, just like it is personally, also for the nation, once there will be enough individuals reignited, which again, it's not even a question of how much you've managed to aspire higher. You need to just change the direction of your soul. You've been compromising, you need to pivot. And the second, the megama, the process changes, the direction changes, you start recuperating, then if there's a critical mass of people who change the direction of their mentality, then the entire direction of reality will change. That's the moment of Mashiach. And that's what all of Chassidus is around to do, to rehabilitate the individuals into a critical mass, and then everything will go back to stretching. That's what Mashiach is. So that's again, this is called a sense of dreaming. And just like Yosef HaTzadik, we mentioned in the beginning, all of his knack was the ability to contain a paradox. It says, Ben Porat Yosef, the word Porat, to solve, like solving a dream, is the same letters of the word Tofel, which means to sew something together. You're taking edges, the seams, and sewing them together. Any solution is sewing something together, taking a paradox and containing it together. That was the uniqueness of his solution. That's the uniqueness of all the Torah, of the dreams in the Torah. Where the main word we said today is that if you follow the history of dreams, then you see they're deteriorating. They used to be, again, you could believe in your dreams. They were as simple as that. And then they became alluding to something, and then they became nonsense. And nowadays we dream nonsense. And even Chazal say this. Like in the exile, you can't trust, you can't count on your dreams. You need to be realistic. And that's Galus. Galus is where you tell people be realistic. But in the Torah, then it wasn't realistic to be realistic. Even Paro understood this. That if I'm going to count on my wizard's interpretations, I'm missing the point. Hashem's telling me something. Something's about to happen. I know it's something big, and your interpretations aren't good enough because they're just alluding to something. So we need to rehabilitate our ability to dream. And this is what we've lost along the ages. And the solution for that is Chassidus. That's why this is what will bring the revolution. There's a lot of effort. We need to put a lot of effort into it. There's serious nefesh. But every single person adds up to a critical mass. And eventually the whole megama, the whole directional flow of humanity will flip. And it's a very, very capable time to make that critical masses right now. Tomorrow night or even today is good. Any day in Kislev is good. Any day during the year is good. But now it's a very, very good time. Let's say so. That was a preparation for Chanukah. Tomorrow we'll light the lights. A lot of Chassidus about Chanukah. Also, the Rabbi Yitzchak has a lot of sichos, a beautiful book about Chanukah, a lot of kavanas about Chanukah. It's become so much. In previous years, I used to want to remember all of the kavanas and all of the shtick of Chanukah. But it became so much that Baruch Hashem you can't. So you just need to mechaven to do everything right. And it works on its own. Ezrat Hashem. So everybody should have a frail Chanukah and a lot of mivtzoim all over the place. If they ask you, you can tell them that you heard that if you're Chabadnik, then you can go anywhere you want. As long as you have a menorah in your back seat, you can do anything you want.